Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of There I Read It, where I'm going over the Harry Potter books chapter by chapter. We are currently in chapter 15 of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, entitled The Quidditch Cup, I think that's right. But there is a ton going on in this chapter, so let me jump right into my notes. At the end of the last chapter, Hermione drops the big bombshell that Hagrid just lost Buckbeak's trial, so he's set to be executed, and apparently Hagrid had sent over a letter that Buckbeak's execution date has been set, but Buckbeak can come back to Hogwarts until that day comes. And Hermione says that they can do an appeal, but that's not going to change anything because Lucius Malfoy basically intimidated everybody into getting his way. And Hermione describes the people in the jury, the boardroom, I'm not quite sure how this works, but Hermione describes them as dottery old fools that basically Lucius Malfoy has in his pocket. But Ron, obviously unhappy to hear this news. I mean, he just recently lost Scabbers himself. He doesn't want Hagrid to lose Buckbeak. He's like, well, this time's going to be different because I'm going to help you, Hermione. You don't have to look up all this information alone. And Hermione just starts crying and she falls into Ron's arms and Ron is like, ugh, tap, tap, tap on the top of the head. Like he doesn't know what to do. I guess that's a side effect of growing up with, let's see, what, 5 brothers? But you would think that Ron's mother and sister would glomp hug him at least fairly regularly enough that it's not like, I don't know what to do when somebody hugs me. What is this affection you speak of? And the kids aren't really allowed to go down to Hagrid's hut anymore because of all the security measures, but they do still see Hagrid in class, so they kind of get to talk to him there. And Hagrid, he's just taking it so hard. He's like, it's all my fault. I got all flustered. I forgot all the information that Hermione worked so hard to get me. And I do want to point out that after the last chapter with how just rare and catty and snotty that Snape always is towards Harry, Hagrid is sitting face to face with this kid that's gotten his beloved animal, on the chopping block, and Hagrid never once takes it out on Malfoy, even though Draco is always saying bad things about Hagrid, like right there in earshot. So, here's an example of a teacher doing the right thing and acting like a responsible adult and not a skeevy little idiot just because his feelings are still hurt from 20 years ago. And that's not to dismiss people who go through trauma, because certainly middle school and high school in particular can be very traumatizing for people, but at some point you have to let that go and you can't hold grudges against people who had nothing to do with it. It's just ridiculous at a certain stage. Plus, it's not like Snape is happy outside of Harry being around. He's kind of just happy with tormenting Harry, and that seems like such a sad, shallow, hollow existence. I don't know why he'd want to perpetuate that. Just let it go. Be indifferent to the kid. He doesn't matter. Anyways, so Draco is with his little goons, Crabbe and Goyle, and they're going on about how pathetic Hagrid is because he's crying over a hippogriff. And Harry and Ron are both starting to, puff out their chest, but Hermione beats them up to the punch and just hauls across Draco's face. And Draco's completely freaked out, and Crabbe and Goyle are both like, we don't know what to do. You can't hit a girl. Too bad they don't have Millicent on their team. I wonder if they'll start bringing her in later now because of this event. But yeah, Hermione has just reached her limit breaker and she can't handle anymore. So the trio are going off to Charms class, and then Hermione disappears before they get all the way inside. But Professor Flitwick is teaching the cheering charm, which they don't really say much about, but I am taking from context it's meant to make you feel happier, because they say that Hermione could really use it, and Hermione is so upset that she missed out. She also didn't show up to lunch, so when Ron and Harry go up to the common room in Gryffindor Tower, they find her asleep in her I can never say that right. In one of her books, she's asleep, and they wake her up, and she's just so distraught. She has to run and apologize to Flitwick. She feels so bad. She hates that she missed a charm. And then it's time to go to divination, where they're gonna start crystal gazing. And just a reminder, in case you've forgotten, Hermione absolutely hates divination because you can't study to get better at it. You either have the gift or you don't, and Hermione doesn't know how to handle that as an academically based student. It reminds me of this class that I took, I think it was philosophy, And the professor flat out said, well, if you are not meant to be a philosopher, I will not give you an A in my class. So we could do everything right. We could write fantastic essays for our tests. But if he didn't feel like we had the heart for philosophy, we just couldn't get an A. Fun. And I hated every minute of that class. But, sometimes you get people like that and they like to mess with students like that. So it is kind of what it is because there's literally nothing you can do. But now they're doing the crystal ball stuff. And of course, none of the students really see anything. And Trelawney starts going around to kind of look for them. And in Harry's ball, of course, she starts to see the Grim once again, because that's apparently all she can see. Maybe that's just Harry's Patronus, or maybe that's just like his spirit in some way. Maybe he's just a dark, grimly child. You don't know his life, at least not any more than the rest of the public does. But when Trelawney starts saying that she sees the Grim in Harry's crystal ball, Hermione is so disgusted. She just starts yelling about how stupid the whole thing is. And Parvati and Lavender, they get really glary towards Hermione about it because they're like Trelawney's fan club and they believe in her and they think that the sun and the moon rise out of Trelawney. So it's interesting how those weird little teacher allegiances end up happening. And of course the kids, I'm sure, who kiss her rear end up getting much better grades and having the gift. And the kids who don't do that are probably not getting very good grades because, again, I know those kind of teachers and they're horrible. But it was really interesting to me how Trelawney handled Hermione's outburst, because Trelawney doesn't yell back, doesn't give Hermione detention, doesn't take points from Gryffindor. She just looks at Hermione and psychologically attacks her. And she tells Hermione that she has the most mundane mind that she's ever seen, so of course she's not going to get along well in divination. She just doesn't have the gifts. And so Hermione's just like, fine, packs up her stuff and just like kicks down the door and leaves. So then, of course, Lavender and Parvati are like, oh my gosh, you said that around Easter, one of our number will leave us forever. You said that forever ago, Professor. Oh my goodness. But come on, this is a self-fulfilled prophecy, and that's the problem with a lot of the psychic ghost hunter kind of stuff. Like, if you say something's gonna happen, and then you're directly involved in making it happen, it's not a gift. That's you doing cause and effect actions. But after class, it's noted that Hermione is starting to look like Lupin with these shadows under her eyes, and even Ron's like, I think you're overdoing it, you're gonna snap, you need to give it a rest. But at this point, we're at Easter, so it's just like a month and some change until the end of school, so it would be really, really frustrating for Hermione to give up now. I mean, yeah, she has way too many classes on her plate. Hopefully she does not do that next year, but she's so close to being done. But now it's time to finally talk about what this chapter is titled for, which is the Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Slytherin. And the Slytherin team is ahead of Gryffindor by 200 points, so that means that the snitch is worth 150 points. So Gryffindor not only needs to win the game by getting the snitch, but they need to have at least 60 points ahead of Slytherin so that they can win the House Cup, because apparently there's no big final, it's just based on who has the most points by the end of the season. Although that talk did make me wonder what has happened with the house points, because they really haven't come up a lot in this book. And there have been so many examples of Harry, and even when Neville messed up, and there's been no mention of, minus X amount of points from Gryffindor. So have they stopped doing that this year? I mean, what's going on? It's odd that something that was such a big deal in previous books is barely notable now. But the Gryffindor team is really aware that Slytherin is going to try to do something to Harry. Even when Harry's trying to go to classes and stuff, they're all sticking their legs out trying to trip him, being really super juvenile. So Gryffindor has amassed these crowds to follow Harry around so that he's never left alone and that nobody is ever able to get to him from another team. But then we jump to the middle of the night and Harry gets up to get a drink of water. He sees something outside, goes and puts his glasses on. There's Crookshanks hanging out outside. And the closer he looks, the more he realizes that Crookshanks isn't alone. There's a big black shaggy dog right there with him, almost like a shadow. So I'm wondering if that might not be Sirius Black, because obviously nobody else is seeing this dog for some reason other than Harry, which is why he thought he was crazy or he was seeing the Grim or whatever. But it kind of falls back to what I was questioning in the last chapter, because if every wizard has to take transfiguration, then turning into an animal shouldn't be a big deal. I mean, McGonagall does it frequently. It's like her normal hat trick that she does for the first day of school. So is nobody questioning that or thinking, hey, maybe we need to keep an eye on the hundreds of animals at Hogwarts? It just seems like such an oversight. But now it's time for the big match to start, and there are about 200 people cheering for Slytherin, but they do say that 3/4 of the school, or 3/4 of the audience at least, are cheering for Gryffindor, so I guess that's about 600 people. They never really mention if everybody in the school is like rah-rah Quidditch, or if some kids are like, I don't care about that, I'm going to the library. But I'm assuming that that means that there's roughly 800 students in the school, which is good to finally get a number on, because I've never really had a good grasp on that, even with the number of kids that are in Harry's class. It's always been so ill-defined, because while they're doing the Sorting Hat stuff, they trail off for a while, so we don't know every name that gets called. But the Slytherin team, as remarked by Lee Jordan, now looks absolutely enormous, and I was just thinking, like, why would they do that? Because now you have bigger targets for the bludgers, and they're not going to be very agile on the brooms because they're so big and bulky. Like, you want little skinny people running on brooms. And maybe the logic from Flint is that, well, if I have a kid the size of a gorilla, maybe they can hit the bludger twice as far. But they still have to also not get hit by the bludger themselves, don't they? Or doesn't that just make them a bigger target? But the match starts, Slytherin cheats like crazy, doing everything they can, right down to Draco Malfoy holding the firebolt so that Harry can't get the snitch. But after a bunch of hullabaloo, Gryffindor wins, so Wood got that house cup he was desperate for, and he starts sobbing. McGonagall appears, and she's just sobbing her eyes out, which is kind of adorable, because I know she's a Gryffindor and she loves Quidditch, but she's really so invested that it's kind of cute. You know, it'd be like if your teacher your senior year is crying because you won the homecoming game. I mean, it's a little bit adorable. It's sentimental. And because they were ahead enough in the points, Gryffindor won the match and the cup for Quidditch. So Harry's like, man, I wish there were Dementors around right now, because the feeling of winning this cup would have to produce the best Patronus. And that's the end of the chapter. No cliffhangers at the end of this chapter. Woohoo! So some good highlights to note. The trio makes up. That's great. Buckbeak is gonna die. That's not great. And Malfoy is apparently the punkiest punk to ever punk for reasons, just because he's a Slytherin apparently. I don't know why all the Slytherins have to be ugly and or jerks. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's a kid's book and it is what it is. I'm really wondering though with Crookshanks and that dog. I mean, that dog has to be Sirius Black. I feel like it has to be. Because if the dog is Lupin, I mean, I guess that could technically work, because a dog and a wolf are kind of in the same canine family of species-ish thing. It's been a long time since I've had a science class, don't judge me. But I mean, I could see where you could go, okay, Lupin means wolf, and dogs are kind of like wolves, so I could kind of see that connection there, but I don't know, that doesn't feel good enough for me with how sickly Lupin is. Yeah, I feel like there's got to be some real werewolf syndrome or something crazy going on there. But I feel completely convinced at this point that Crookshanks is some kind of something. This is a real blind spot I have in the movie. I don't even remember there being a cat and a dog. I remember like Hermione going, Crookshanks, stop that! And that's the last I remember of Crookshanks from the third movie. So I really don't have a clue in my head, unless he's like Voldemort, which would just be the weirdest pull. But yeah, I have no idea who Crookshanks could be. I think Sirius Black is going to be the dog, because Black is also described as having this really unkept black hair, and then here we have this really shaggy dog. It's a little bit too convenient. Plus, apparently nobody is on the lookout for dogs, so I mean, I don't know the whole story here. They said Dementors can see through your, you know, invisibility cloaks and everything else, but they can't see through if you change into an animal. I don't know. There's got to be a combination of transfiguration into animals along with using the secret passages messages from the Marauders map. But again, let's see, this was chapter 15, so there is about, 7 more chapters left, I think? So hopefully the ball starts rolling and answers start dropping off left and right, and it's not one of those things where we're gonna get right up to the next to the last chapter again, and now here's a bunch of exposition. Like, I hope they don't do that. I would like them to, check off things and answer things in a way that's not overwhelming, because then it makes me just kind of want to skip to the end. Like, I don't care about all this mystery, just give me the answer. I know it's going to be in the second to last chapter. But I guess that's something, again, we'll see in a few more weeks. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, as always, if you want to comment, I appreciate that, and sharing is caring, because the YouTube algorithm hates me. So telling your friends is about the only way that I get any notice anymore. It doesn't even have to be your friends, really. If you got a Reddit board, a Discord board, whatever, I'm good to be shared wherever. No pressure, right? But I guess that's it, and we will see you next time, family members. Bye! Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, "Hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that?" Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.